Tennessee fans and young college football fans, can you believe it? There was a time, and I remember it well because I was down in SEC country covering SEC football on a daily basis when Tennessee dominated this series. That was back in the Peyton Manning, T. Martin days. So that was a long, long time ago. Maybe we're on the verge of maybe. Who knows? All right, Alabama's coming to town. Huge matchup coming off the LSU win. We got Charlie Burris on the line. Always enjoy talking to Charlie. You can catch him on Big Orange Podcast. Charlie, how's it going?
Great. Good to be back. Yeah, I always say of the Tennessee-Alabama matchup, but like when I was a kid, we always kicked their butt. It started in 95, and it really didn't stop till 2006. Or I guess, 7 is when Saban showed up. Then we haven't beat them since. So it's like all I ever knew growing up was beating Alabama. All the kids now know growing up is Alabama beating Tennessee. And maybe we can flip that back the other direction. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully someday.
Well, before we get to the matters at hand coming up this week, let's look at the LSU game because that I was anticipating just a tremendous game is what I was anticipating. It was my number one watch at noon, and I checked out in the third quarter because Tennessee was obviously handling business. They got some gifts, but they took advantage, and they were clearly the better team, operating on all cylinders on offense. I thought that Hendon Hooker hookup with Jalen Hyatt was a thing of beauty to the back of the end zone. Just a great game. Jabari Small doing his thing, and the defense really shutting things down as well.
It was a really impressive performance all the way around. It was just Tennessee showing up and saying, we're the better team, and that's it. You're not going to have a say in this. And they just went and they took a stranglehold around LSU's throat and didn't let go. And I don't know that I was expecting that. I would say that I thought that the possibility was there, but certainly I didn't think that was going to be the outcome. But it just from the jump, you fumbled that opening kickoff. LSU fumbled the opening kickoff, and it was over. It was over right when it started because ultimately, they just overwhelmed LSU and really on both sides of the ball. And the thing that I loved on that note, the thing that I probably loved the most is that this game and the Florida game too, they're beautiful examples of how Josh Heupel's coaching style gets so deep into the opponent's head. He makes you completely change the way that you approach a football game because, Brian Kelly goes out here and he goes like, I got to score. I got to get touchdowns. I can't just settle for 3 points. And so he's going for it on every fourth down. And Tennessee, the defense really steps up. The run defense for Tennessee right now is, it's a brick wall. They held LSU absolutely in check. And so he gets into your head, makes you think that you have to be aggressive. You have to put up these points. It's got to be a shootout if we're going to win this thing. And then you go out and you make mistakes. And you go out and Tennessee gets a stop on fourth down and they turn right around and they score a touchdown on you after they get that stop. And it's just this brutal cycle that happens with opposing coaches. It got Florida into a 17-point hole. It got LSU into a 27-point loss. And when Heupel came in and I really, was kind of concerned, like, oh, this is gimmicky. I don't know about this offense. It worked in the American Conference, but this is SEC football. This is big boy football right here. And it affects SEC coaches the same way that it affects coaches in the American Conference. And it's really, really impressive. I can't say enough about it, honestly, at this point. The proof's all there. So credit all the way around to him. It was a great performance on Saturday.
The 3 previous trips to Death Valley resulted in a last play of the game to decide the game, but not so much this time. Of course, Tennessee took care of business in the first half. And to underline your point about it affecting opposing coaches, Brian Kelly goes for it 4th and 10 at the 45. I'm like, what are you doing? 4th and 10. That's like a 10 or 15% chance of conversion. No, you hand it back over to Tennessee and Hendon Hooker. Boom, he hits the big shot to Brew McCoy. It's an easy 3.
There you go. That is it. Just the way that it works in Tennessee's favor. And then they it seems like right now, just with Hendon Hooker and the way that he's playing, they almost don't have a hard time smacking you right in the mouth after you make those mistakes. That's been the signature of the season so far, is that when you give them the chances, they capitalize. I believe so far, Tennessee is 28 of 28 on red zone trips. Something like that. Like it's 100% conversion rate. Obviously, that's number one in America at the moment. It can't get better. And then it was something like 12 of 16 fourth down conversions, and they had a really great one in this game against LSU where they sort of ran this odd shovel pass thing that worked perfectly. It's crazy right now. Just seeing this as a longtime Tennessee fan, somebody that covered the team for years. You just look back at the history of everything that happened, and Tennessee in the past has had so many teams where they had really great talent. Like the 2015, 2016 teams were loaded and wasted on terrible coaching. And now you look at what Heupel is doing, you go like, what could this dude do with a real roster? Think about what he could have done with that team in 2016 with Josh Dobbs, Alvin Kamara, all these dudes. Because you're watching now and you go, this team is winning because of the coaching. Where back then you were saying, oh, they're winning despite the coaching. And that just speaks volumes about what Heupel is doing and who he is. It's really impressive.
And on the flip side of all these key third and fourth down conversions on the offensive side, on the defensive side, they're getting stops that they've not been getting for the past few years, where they've been looking like a fire drill out there running around, guys blowing coverages. And now you see plays where I brought up the 4th and 10. That was Byron Young coming in like a bam off a blitz when the LSU offensive line was directed toward the right side, because that's where the blitz was coming. Then he just manhandles his guy and gets a big sack. There was a Joseph sack that was huge on a key third or fourth down situation. There was another third or fourth down where Josh Booty caught the ball on a crossing route where normally, again, Tennessee defense the last few years lets him get the first down, but the two defenders are right there to make the tackle before he can reach the sticks. It was just impressive on that side of the ball as well.
It all goes to the coaching again and the player development that we've seen. It's not just on the offensive side of the ball. And the defense was probably the element with Heupel that I was the most afraid of. You knew that he could put up points on the offensive end, and obviously that is working like a charm at the moment. But defensively, I mean, even against Florida a couple of weeks ago, they were just getting annihilated. And then they come into this game, and LSU, they kind of got a patchwork offensive line, and the running back situation isn't great. They have some of the best wide receivers in America, but Brian Kelly's scheme, I don't know what LSU fans think about that, but I would say I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think he's utilizing the pieces that he has to the best of their ability. But still, all credit to the defense, especially Rodney Garner, defensive line coach Tennessee has. The guy's been in the SEC for millennia. He's a true veteran of this league. And he has taken a set of players that I thought would be serviceable. I think that's the right word. They weren't going to be bad. But the plays that they made on Saturday were above any expectation that I had of them. And they held Florida's run game in check. And their run game with Etienne, it can be good. Held them very well in check, held Daniels and LSU's run game in check. And then in the past game, the secondary is a different discussion, but the secondary stepped up in every way that they needed to. I mean, holding LSU to 13 points, yeah, LSU's offense is not good. It's just not. But still, holding any team to 13 points in SEC football is a really impressive performance. So just credit all the way around. I mean, honestly, this is a game that I never thought I would lay eyes on, and at least not in any close time frame with any Tennessee coach. And so everybody deserves a big old pat on the back after this one.
And the last 6 points didn't even really matter. So they only gave up 7 meaningful points against LSU on the road in Death Valley. And the team still has athletes. For as much of a mess as they are, it's still an LSU roster. So it's pretty impressive performance there. For as feel good as that is, and important a win on the road in the SEC is, Alabama week gets off to a rough start in regards to unfortunate news coming our way concerning safety Jalen McCullough.
So apparently on Sunday afternoon, this was the police report. He was arrested for felony aggravated assault on Sunday afternoon. A drunk person accidentally came into his apartment near UT's campus, and an incident ensued from there that ended with the drunk person in question getting punched in the face, and that's the aggravated assault. The reports all over. It was on ESPN. It's everywhere right now if you want to go read all the fine details there. But regardless, ultimately it's a weird situation. Depending on how, if all the facts come out, it's a situation where I could actually see he doesn't get kicked off the team. They just kind of go, hey, cool it, and he plays in the future. But I think he's out for this game. I think that's a sure thing, in my personal opinion. It is not, that has not come out officially, nothing like that. But in my opinion, I just don't see it. I don't think he'll play in this Alabama game. But what that means for Tennessee, he plays at the weakest position on the entire team. The secondary is thin and it is inexperienced. But he is one of the most experienced pieces in that secondary. He's played almost every snap of every single game this season. Him and Trey Flowers are the most important pieces in that secondary. That said, he is not great, and he's a player where kind of some people have sort of been like, hey, maybe we could try some new blood there and just see what happens. Like I would say his play has been at that level. He hasn't been a guy where you're just like, whoa, he's absolutely unreplaceable and we don't know. But I do think, so there's that in terms of his level of play. But I think something that you cannot replace is that he is a real team leader, which is why this incident was pretty out of the blue. He's really known to be a good leader in that locker room and a good kid. So it's pretty strange to see that. I think a lot of people were shocked that he was involved in something like this, even if it was, in some sense, it kind of fell into his lap. You know, he didn't ask for somebody to barge into his apartment like that. But regardless, that's kind of irreplaceable, just team leadership. Trey Flowers, the other safety that he plays beside, is another team leader. Jeremy Banks, your middle linebacker, and you know, there are other big pieces that are leading that defense. He's not the only one, but he's one of the big ones, and so that's tough. As far as it goes with Alabama, I think you're going to get roasted almost no matter what happens. Well, if Bryce Young plays, I think we got to put that caveat on it right there. If Bryce Young plays, you're probably going to get roasted in Tennessee secondary no matter what happens, no matter who plays. But it's, I guess, to give it a bottom line, he's not irreplaceable. The team leadership's going to be hard to replace, but it's next man up. You know, it's already a struggling unit, so why not just try a new body? Let's see what happens. I'd say like that.
So again, we're not talking about a great player that's irreplaceable, as you just stated, but we are talking about a captain, 4-year starter, fourth on the team with 23 tackles, had 7 of those against LSU. So
it just
it's yeah.
And the injury situation on the entire team, what makes it particularly tough is that you were really shaping up to get the guys back that you wanted. I mean, Cedric Tillman, Josh Heupel had his press conference just earlier today on Monday. Cedric Tillman should be available, according to Josh Heupel, for this game. Reading in between the lines, I think that means he'll be suited up, he'll be available, and he probably still won't play that much. Maybe he plays the whole game. I don't know, but just the feeling of it just feels more like Tillman's a dog. He wants to get in there. He wants to be involved in the biggest game of the season so far and just make sure that he contributes. But I also think that the coaches are very conscious of, He's probably not 100%. We don't want to re-injure this thing. We don't want to exacerbate the problem, make it exponentially worse. So you have Tillman coming back, which is massive. You had Gerald Mincey, who was your starting left tackle. He was out against LSU. His replacement. Speaking of a situation where you kind of had a player who's not amazing, but he had to be replaced in a big game. Gerald Mincey, your left tackle, unexpectedly out against LSU. His replacement comes in. People are kind of like, oh no, what's going to happen? His replacement played great. He really stepped up. He played directly against BJ Ojolari in that game and was put in a really admirable effort. And he, I think, according to Pro Football Focus, graded out as like the number 4 or 5 player on the entire offense during that game. Like, he really did it. So maybe you can get that kind of performance from whoever replaces McCullough. Hopefully, Lord willing, I hope that's what happens. But it is good that Heupel has a huge just next man up positivity. No looking back. We're going to deal with the situation that we have kind of mentality. So mentally, I think this team is built for something like this, and hopefully it's not something that comes as a massive negative impact on the team.
Charlie Burris on the line from Big Orange Podcasts. Check it out on A to Z Sports. And Tennessee, of course, with a huge top 5 matchup against Alabama in Knoxville on Saturday. So sounds like you're conceding when you say Bryce Young's going to tear up the secondary regardless. It sounds like you're either conceding a loss or you're conceding a shootout.
So I think the shootout is much more how I'm leaning. Tennessee was able to give Alabama's secondary last season a ton of problems. They give, the way that Heupel runs this offense is just such a problem schematically, almost where it doesn't even matter who the players are. He can spring guys open, and he's really effective in that way, the way that he calls games. But you add in great athletes like Brew McCoy, Jalen Hyatt, maybe Cedric Tillman, depending on how he's feeling. Then the run game, you've had Jabari Small really stepping up at the running back position. Jalen Wright has played well. They ground down LSU, and then late in that second half just put together a piece of art there on a drive where they just imposed their will on LSU. And so they have tons of weapons to hit you a bunch of different ways. And now this season, speaking of that drive, actually, that late drive against LSU, it's not all tempo. Last season, they really, really struggled when they had to slow the ball down. Or I guess you would say take air out of the ball, waste clock. They really struggled. It looked so unnatural. In that LSU game, they did that incredibly effectively. They just lined up and they moved the ball. And so that adds, I think, a really scary element to what Heupel does, because everybody was just like, oh, well, he uses the tempo. That's how he moves the ball. If they didn't do that, they wouldn't be able to. Nope. They didn't use tempo in that second half against LSU. And they went on this grinding, back-breaking drive late in that game that wasted half of the fourth quarter. So not that I'm saying that it will be as easy against Alabama. It certainly will not. You are facing off against who I would say is the best player in college football, in Will Anderson, relative to his position. I mean, the dude is a monster's monster. But I think Tennessee will be able to move the ball. I think if you can put up, no matter who plays a quarterback for Alabama, I think if you can put up 35, you are in this game late, you give yourself a chance to win, and you potentially win. If Milroe plays quarterback for Alabama, I think it is not likely. I think there is a scenario where Tennessee wins this game by like 2 touchdowns. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I really think if Bryce Young is out of this game, that's a serious, serious problem for Alabama, because Tennessee's going to get theirs. Just with the way that Hendon Hooker is playing, true Heisman contender, he wants that Heisman moment right now. He'll tell you he's not thinking about it, but how do you not? And so they're set up to have success on the offensive side of the ball. If Alabama doesn't have an answer to that, look out. You almost just lost to a bad Texas A&M team. And now you're going to Neyland Stadium, and the environment is going to be unbelievable. This energy is already just through the roof right now in Knoxville. So, may God have mercy on their soul if Milrow plays, except I think that Young is going to play. I think they're going to shoot him up with whatever they gotta give him the antler spray. I don't know what they're going to do. But I think he'll be the guy that plays for Alabama.
Because Charlie, that despite wins against LSU and Florida, first-year head coaches there still figuring things out, and they're certainly not vintage LSU and Florida teams, that there's a lot of people out there that want to see it against an Alabama or a Georgia, and
Sure.
of course they're both coming.
Yeah, heard a lot of that from opposing fan bases that I think are scared of what's happening at Tennessee. I think they look at what is happening and they go like, well, LSU's not very good. Well, Tennessee won by 30. Yeah, they're not very good, but they beat their head in. Like, it's not like they went in against a really bad LSU team and just like barely won and it was a last second play and they're struggling. They had a 17-point lead against Florida. They beat the absolute crap out of LSU. The only game that I think is an outlier at all is that Pitt game. But ultimately, I think Tennessee was still kind of getting their legs under them in that game. It was the second game of the season, and they weren't totally gelling yet. They're getting better every week. This team is just looking better and better and better and better. And I think the only thing that will stop Tennessee from playing good, focused football is Tennessee. Alabama's very good. They will have a major talent advantage. But Tennessee, I think the thing that gives them a big leg up is Josh Heupel is already excuse my French, a balls to the wall guy. He already just goes for it. And now you're coming into a game where this might not be the best framing possible, but for lack of a better word, you have nothing to lose. Realistically, you can lose this game and still, I said that last week on this show. You can lose this game, still play for the SEC East against Georgia, as long as you don't lose until you play Georgia. You can lose against Alabama and still play for the SEC East. So you almost virtually have nothing to lose. You're not going to drop out of the top 10 for losing to Alabama. Nobody's going to dock you for that. And so it's, you already have a coach that is incredibly aggressive, and he's going to come in with a mentality of we're playing with house money. That's horrifying if you're Alabama, a team that is supremely confident at the moment, playing with reckless abandon, playing with this sort of nothing to lose mentality. And I don't know. Maybe Alabama comes in angry. Saban, has them practice till they're dead on the ground this week, and they come in just with a bulldog mentality and beat Tennessee down. I don't know. That is also a possibility. I think Saban is the best coach of all time. What are you going to do? But there has not been an opportunity for Tennessee to beat Alabama like this since they won in 2006. I mean, realistically, I think it is as good as it will probably ever get against Nick Saban.
Although there have been a few scares as huge underdogs.
Yeah.
There was
2009, which was arguably one of Saban's best teams ever. Came down to a field goal.
Goals. Yeah,
came down to a blocked field goal. 2015, Tennessee had a lead with 2 minutes left, and then Alabama scored in the last second drive and won. It has been close. And last season, I believe Tennessee was down 4 points going into the fourth quarter. I need to go back and look at exactly what happened in that game. But
like 24-21, something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. And in Alabama, Tennessee ran out of players and Alabama ran it up in that fourth quarter. But I think Tennessee has the dudes to, if they get in that position again this year, they have the guys to hang. And Tennessee doesn't have the talent to overwhelm Alabama at all, but they have the talent to beat Alabama. I can say that unequivocally. I think Alabama fans would tell you that. And if they wouldn't tell you that, I think they're lying or they haven't been watching what's happening with their own football team. Because this is the most mistake-prone Alabama football team I've probably ever seen, at least in the Saban era. I mean, some of those teams before Saban were god-awful. But since he's been there, I don't think I have seen an Alabama team make this many mistakes. It's brutal. So hopefully they do that on Saturday against Tennessee. They continue that trend. That'd be nice.
They could easily have 2 losses. They are pretty fortunate not to have 2 losses.
I think genuinely lucky against they stuck it out against Texas A&M. They were genuinely lucky against Texas, I think, because even on that final drive, if I'm thinking correctly, there was a flag on that final drive that like helped them move the ball and some things like that. Where, of course, those Alabama refs, they're always there to have their back, but it's a team that's vulnerable. I'll put it that way. If Alabama comes in, Bryce Young's 100% healthy, and Alabama wins by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, will I be totally surprised? No, I will not be. But will I be surprised if Tennessee wins this game? Absolutely not. It's right there for them. They just got to go take it.
Right there with you. Can't argue with any of that. It's been a fortunate Alabama team. It's a vulnerable Alabama team, but it still might be the best team in the country. So put all that together.
That's well put. Well said.
Definitely one of the top 3.
Yeah.
All right. Charlie Burris doing a great job there at Big Orange Podcast. Get on over there. Check out Charlie's work. This is the week to do it. It's Alabama week. It's a legitimate chance to win. And like we have stated, in the last 15 years, they've generally gotten blown out. They've had a couple shots to pull off the huge upset. But in years where it really wouldn't have mattered except for a real good feel-good win, this would matter. We're talking about a possible championship run in the SEC Eastern Division. Really good stuff. Charlie, appreciate you being here. Enjoy the game, and we will talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Mark.